This pre-cal lesson is about factoring identities. Again, you'll probably want your salmon colored paper to review some of those identities, and this will just be doing more of what we were doing earlier this week, just adding some steps. So we'll just look at 4 main examples. The first one is about common terms. We've actually done one like this before. This is just a little bit more complicated. So if I have cosine squared x plus cosine squared x cotangent squared x, and I want to simplify. I notice that both terms have cosine squared x. So I have cosine squared x, take that out, and I have 1 plus cotangent is the one we have, cotangent squared x. If I take out the cosecant from both. There is a property about 1 plus cotangent, and that is that it equals cosecant. That's me stepping one ahead. I can recopy down my cosine. And now I have cosine times cosecant. I know that cosecant, then, is the same as 1 over sine squared of x, because that's what cosecant is. And if I multiply cosine squared x times 1, I get cosine squared x over sine squared x, and cosine over sine is cotangent, so all of this is equal to cotangent squared of x. Now, there I've simplified that quite a bit. Example number 2. If I'm talking about the difference of squares, so I have cosecant squared x minus 1 over cosecant of x minus 1. The difference from top to bottom here is that the top has a squared. Now, if it's the difference of squares, I've got something being subtracted on top, so I can factor that out into cosecant of x minus 1 times cosecant of x plus 1. That would just be like if I had x squared minus 1, same concept, except x is being replaced by cosecant. And on the bottom, I have cosecant of x minus 1, and this whole factor cancels this whole factor, and I'm left with the cosecant of x plus 1. And that's my final simplified answer. The third example is following that same thing, the difference of squares. If I have the cosecant to the 4th of x minus the cotangent to the 4th of x. Okay, in that case I've got two things being raised to the 4th power, so I can separate those out by doing them squared, and that's cosecant squared x plus cotangent squared x times cosecant squared x minus cotangent squared x. And one of my Pythagorean identities tells me that this one with a subtraction sign can be reduced to just 1. The other one I can leave as is. And if I multiply that by 1, that's my final answer. There is no more simplifying. The reason I can't factor that one is because there's a plus sign in between. So there's nothing more that I can do there, and that's my final answer. We're going to look at one more example. Example number 4. And that is what to do with a trinomial. So you know trinomial factoring. Now we're just going to apply that to trig. And so if I have sine to the 4th x minus 2 sine squared x plus 1, I can factor that by treating this as if it was x to the 4th minus 2x squared plus 1. If I take the square root of something to the 4th power, that's like saying sine squared x. So that goes in the first group. If I want to multiply to positive 1, I either can do negative 1 times negative 1 or positive 1 times positive 1. In this case, my middle term is negative, so I'm going to use the negative 1 and the negative 1. These two pieces are the same, so I can write them as sine squared x minus 1 quantity squared. And I can use my Pythagorean identities to know that sine squared of x minus 1 is the same as negative cosine squared x, all squared. Anything negative squared becomes positive, so I have cosine to the 4th x. And that's my final simplified answer. Your assignment for this one is a 4, and that's page 380, numbers 45 to 54. And you're just practicing these skills of factoring out common terms, difference of squares, and trinomials. There's that assignment. Good luck. Let me know if you have questions.